Hey guys, it's Matt Haycox here, and good morning, good Sunday morning, and welcome to my new feature. It's not just a new feature, but it's the first time I've filmed in a long time. Well, certainly the first time I've filmed with Callum since at all this year. So I hope I can still remember what to do. Hope I can still talk semi-sensibly to you guys. I've been in Dubai for, well, probably the first 5 months of this year. Been in France for the last couple of weeks, and that's where I'm going to be for the summer. And if I'm being completely honest, I probably took my foot off the gas a bit, from January, February, March, April. I wasn't working probably as hard as I could or should do, but I guess we all need a bit of downtime now and again. And as much as I like working, I was very much enjoying my time in the sun. I spent quite a lot of time with Harley. I probably had 10 weeks with her, which is the first time since she was about 2 years old that I've spent such a block of time with her. But she's back in England, hard at work at school, and it's time for me to kind of get hard to work again on my projects. Some of the things that I've probably been on the back burner for a while, and also to kind of get recording again, get talking to you guys, and coming up with some new stuff for YouTube, for Insta, and some of my general personal branding stuff, in general. And one of the things we talked about for a while was to do this kind of a weekly roundup, really. Talk about the things that I've been up to in the week. Maybe some problems I've had to deal with or overcome in business. Strategies I may have implemented. Just I guess anything really that can kind of educate or entertain you guys, and hopefully that you can benefit from and implement yourselves. So. Here we are, week one. What's the date? What is the date? It's Sunday, the 6th of June. So the way we're going to do these, I'll record them on a Sunday morning. We'll try and get them out on by a kind of a Sunday night. So it is a genuine roundup of that week before. I'll keep a few notes during the week. And have some things to talk to you about. But I guess, as always, it's going to be a work in progress. Love to hear what you guys think, what you like, what you don't like. I know there's plenty of you that aren't shy at telling me what you don't like, so please do that, and we'll get the format boxed off. We'll include some things that you want to see and that you want to benefit from. I'd be lying if I told you that everything that I talk about today has happened in the last 7 days, because I've been planning this for a few weeks now, and there's been a couple of things which, even though they haven't happened directly in this last week, are still pretty interesting stories. So I think certainly important stories as far as I'm concerned. And also, one final thing before we get into it, my website is relaunched. That is my matt-haycox.com. When I say relaunched, that's probably a bit too grand a term, but we've certainly redone it, rehashed it, recoded it, and it's back up there. I mean, probably a lot of you guys wouldn't notice a difference if you'd seen it from before and after, but technologically, it's a lot better anyway. And one of the things that we have on there now, which again has been around for a few months, but we've never really, I guess, promoted it properly, pushed it forward properly, is the Matt Haycox Daily. That is a subsection of the matthaycox.com website, but you can also see it itself at matthaycoxdaily.com. And what I wanted to create there, I mean, again, this has been an idea in the background for the last year or so, the last couple of years really, is an online news site, an online magazine, effectively, with current and breaking business stories, with articles, interviews, from inspirational people, from people who've got something to teach, something to tell. It just, most importantly, the stuff that you guys want to hear about and want to benefit from. And it's been an idea for a while. Like anything, it's having the time and the resources to commit to all this stuff. But this is going to be very much a focus of mine for the next 6 months and going forward. And I think now, probably more so than ever, is the relevance of news channels that aren't, that aren't biased, to an agenda, that aren't trying to, push people off in a direction, or have fake news, or have I guess just some kind of bent that really detracts from what the underlying stories and underlying message are. So I can't promise you'll always like or be interested in what we put on there, but what I can promise you is there won't be any agenda, and there won't be and there won't be any misreporting. So let's get on with it. What have I been up to? So something that has consumed my life over the last 2+ years has been an ongoing legal case. I guess also when I tell some of these stories, both now and on future episodes of this, I will have to redact to some degree the names and parties involved in some of these things, but the message will always be accurate and true. So I've been involved in a legal case where we have been getting sued, for a very meaty 7-figure sum, and this has dragged on for about 2.5 years. And I guess and it settled a couple of weeks ago, which is why I guess I can and want to talk about it today. Legal battles are something that people always talk about in business, and there's always that old adage, that cliche of no one wins in a legal case apart from the lawyers, and I guess this was very much one of those cases where it's hard to be pragmatic. It's hard to to take your ego out of the situation, but it's something that's so important, for the overall good, for your sanity, and ultimately to stop losing too much money, and it's as difficult as it is, you've got to take that step back and not let pride get in the way. I mean, in this particular case, from day one, and look, again, you'll have to take my word for this, it's very easy for me to say, and there's always two sides to every story, but from day one, we've maintained and genuinely believe that that we never owed a penny of this money. Okay, maybe legally, technically, the people who were suing us had some kind of grounds for this. Well, obviously, if they didn't, they would never have been able to get us to court in the first place. But unquestionably, morally, that money was not owed. And during the last couple of years, it has taken multiple 6 figures of legal fees, hundreds and hundreds of man hours of my time and my team's time. Sleepless nights, lack of sanity to get to where we were, a couple of weeks ago when we were about to go to court. And again, unfortunately, given how given how strongly we felt that we didn't owe the money in the first place, it was kind of even further disheartening to know that our legal team felt that we didn't really have any chance of winning this when we went to court. And a couple of days prior, we ended up settling all these cases. I think we've had to pay out a not insignificant 6-figure sum. And for the 2 or 3 days prior to making the payments, this was something I wrestled with day and night. Thinking, should we pay this? Do we stand our ground? Do we dig our heels in? Because I guess ultimately, even if we'd have lost the case, that wouldn't have that didn't necessarily have to be the end of it. We could have appealed, we could have found other ways to try and fight. But I took the view in the end that enough time and negative energy had been wasted on this over the previous couple of years, and we paid the money. We drew a line and we moved on, and so this isn't just a situation. These situations don't just happen in business. You can equate this to personal arguments, maybe in a divorce battle, maybe even just domestic feuds, family feuds, etc., where very, very significant amounts of time and energy get lost on these situations. And I look back over the last couple of years of fighting this, and the time that was spent and the money that was lost. Maybe if we would have just paid this or done some kind of settlement rather than letting pride and ego get in the way a couple of years ago, I could probably have made that money back 10 times over, really. And I guess that's the message in this for me, really. That's the story that I wanted to share. You guys, anyone in business is undoubtedly going to get embroiled in some kind of legal disputes, at some times in their career, and they don't have to be large scale ones like I've just talked about. I'm sure we've all had a minor dispute with a supplier, a few £100 here, a few £1,000 there, maybe even an ex-member of staff who's left you and decided to put in some kind of claim for a wrongful dismissal or some kind of misbehaviour or whatever it is. And we always look at these situations, from a position of pride, and what's right and what's wrong, and I think ultimately probably cost ourselves 10 times more. Now that's not an excuse to let people get away with things. Again, particularly when we talk about staff. It's very, when you have an ex-member of staff. I mean, I tell you, over the years, 20 years of employing people, I can probably remember 30, 40 plus instances where when people have left, we've received some kind of claim for something, all spurious rubbish from disgruntled ex-staff. But the problem is, these guys they might be claiming a couple of £1,000. And the problem is, it's going to cost more than a couple of £1,000 just in the legal fees to fight this. Never mind the time, the distraction, and everything else. And it's always a difficult one because on the one hand, you think, well, I need to take a stand here. Principally, I'm not paying this person the money, and also, if the people in our businesses know that we're a soft touch, then every time anyone leaves, they'll probably stick a claim in because they know that we won't fight it, and they know that they'll be good to earn another couple of grand. But I think taking, let's say, the moral high ground, looking at the bigger picture and where it detracts you from your mission, from your day to day, is often a bit more important than kind of sticking to your guns and fighting your principles. So, long-winded story, but lots of different applications to that. And like I say, whilst I tell the story in the context of a big 7-figure problem, the same logic applies, whether it's for a few £1,000, a few £100, or even just a fallout with your brother or sister. So that's that. But it also actually leads me on quite nicely into another almost pride-style situation that I was involved in over the last few weeks, where this is a business that probably 3 years ago had a valuation of somewhere between 20 and 30 million pounds. Again, I'll redact the parties involved for the sake of telling this. But it was a business that 2 or 3 years ago was worth 20, 30 million quid. And for various reasons, that business has fallen off a cliff. They've had disaster after disaster, financial problem after financial problem. Now, I will argue it's because. You hear that bit of French talk in the background. We're filming on my boat, and the radio's still on. So I'll say that again so you can still hear it. But I was just saying that I've actually forgotten what I was saying. Now, I was just saying that this business had been around for 2 or 3 years, 20, 30 million quid valuation, and after a couple of years of mismanagement, of bad debts, of big problems, it is scraping along on the bones of its arse, but barely even solvent. And this business and I've got a bit of history together, insofar as the owners of that and myself, I say we don't get on. You know what? I don't really not get on with anyone, but these guys have got a bit of an issue with me. And I heard on the grapevine that this business was for sale, and they've been trying to sell it for a while now, and not had anyone interested in it. For various reasons, I actually would be interested to buy this business, and I was told by the person who'd introduced us that it could probably be bought for £200,000 to £300,000, which is frightening, really, given that obviously people had invested in this, you know, on a 20 to 30 million pound valuation 2 or 3 years ago. But it makes sense for me to potentially acquire this within my group, so I let it be known that I was interested to buy it. But I also did say to the introducer, you know, there's probably going to be some personality clashes between the existing owners and me here. I said, so let's not let personalities get in the way until we've got a deal agreed. So go and agree the numbers, tell them it's a confidential purchaser, and when we've agreed the small print, you know, I'll come along. So anyway, they've agreed the price, or rather in the past tense, they had agreed the price, and the introducer came back to me and said, right, you know, that they're happy to do a deal at that price. I said, so what's the next steps? And they said, well, they want to meet whoever the purchaser is. You know, they want to see the money. So we talked about various ways we could probably try and keep my name out of it for a while, and in the end thought, you know what, we're just going to have to bite the bullet here and get on with it. So so that's what we did. He contacted them, let them know that the purchaser was me, and about 10 minutes later came back to me and said, there is no deal under any circumstances at any price. I'm saying, well, what are you talking about? You know, there's no one else left to buy it. You know, what are these guys going to do instead? To which the response was they had actually said they would rather give it away for free than accept 30 million quid off me. And obviously that's a flippant comment, but you know the message holds true that, you know, this has probably been the, you know, kind of, you know, industrial scale of their stubbornness and stupidity over the last 2 or 3 years, which has driven that price, you know, driven that valuation down from the 20 or 30 million quid it was once worth to the 200 or 300 grand it's potentially worth now, to the nothing it's probably going to be worth in 6 months' time when it is, you know, a liquidated speck on the business memory, business horizon. So a couple of different stories there, really, about pragmatism, about pride, about ego, not getting in the way of things. So yeah, I mean, tell me, you guys. Do those stories, you know, are they something you can relate to? Are they the situations that you've been involved in? Do you agree with me? You know, what would you do? And look, you know, I guess I tell you my views now after doing this for 20 years. You know, they're nothing's ever necessarily right or wrong. It's just, you know, what I would do, how I would behave now, and what I do now isn't what I did 5 years ago, isn't what I did 15 or 20 years ago. So, you know, it's I guess it's always a permanent learning curve. So what else can I tell you? Here's my little notes of what I've been up to. What is next? Recruitment. Yeah, let's talk about recruitment, because that is always something that's on my mind. It's on my agenda. You know, most days when I'm talking with my guys, or when I'm working with the businesses that I'm involved in. And it's also something I get a lot of questions from you guys at at home and in your businesses about as well. And you know, most business owners hate recruitment. You know, they find it expensive, they find it time consuming, and well, it's expensive and time consuming when you get it wrong. It's kind of even potentially time consuming and expensive when you get it right. But when you do get it wrong, you know, it makes you even more, I guess, even more grumpy about the whole situation. Now, you know, any of you guys who followed me for a while, will probably see a lot of my posts about this, because I do talk about recruitment quite often. But I'm on a big recruitment drive at the moment to really staff up and scale up a lot of the businesses that I'm involved in. I'm looking for some real quality hires. And positions from senior to middle management to junior. So the few things for me to talk about with you. I mean, a story I always tell is that I remember a couple of years ago, a guy who was a client of mine. We were doing a bit of, I guess, a bit of advice, a bit of consultancy for him. He said, "I want your advice on how to grow my sales and build a sales department without employing anybody." He said, "I don't want to employ anybody. Hate sales staff. What can I do instead?" And for me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, listen, okay, there's always going to be strategies and technologies that can potentially allow you to work with a smaller number of staff than a larger number of staff. But to think you can grow a business with no staff is anywhere between naive and ludicrous. And my view very much here is that and again, a lot of the people in the businesses I work with think I'm a reckless lunatic when it comes to recruiting people, when it comes to hiring staff, because I'll probably take on most people that I've met and had some kind of gut feeling / level of interest to, and my view has always been that you don't know what these staff are going to be like until they start. They can interview fantastically. You can do 2, 3, 4 rounds of interviews. You can take reference after reference. And again, the reality is that these any potential future member of staff is only going to give you a reference request from someone he knows is going to write a good reference. They're going to bend over backwards to try and say the right things in an interview. Now, that's not to say that everyone's going to interview well, and obviously there's plenty of people you meet at interview and think I wouldn't go anywhere near them. But if you don't take a chance on some of these people, then you are never going to be in a position to allow to drive the businesses forward and to allow them to grow. Now, I often, maybe flippantly, maybe argumentatively say that the reality is that that 90% of people are useless. I remember saying that once quite recently, and somebody replied to one of my stories on Instagram, and I actually, I did very much take to heart what they said, which was, it's not that 90% of people are useless, it's that they are useless for the role in which they've been put. And I think that's probably a more fairer adaptation of that phrase or of that saying, because I guess it's right. Everybody has their uses, and are we putting square pegs in round holes? Are we promoting people above their level of competence? But I guess for the moral of what I'm saying, the reality is you're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs to get the princes that you want in each of those positions. And I don't, and I go through probably weeks of despondence of thinking, I'm not, I want to trim the businesses, I want to make them smaller. We can have an easier ride here with a quarter of the size of the team. And we probably could for a period of time, but then the reality is we're never going to hit those, hit that scale, hit that growth and targets that we want to do. So you've got to find what works for you. And one of the things I've never been able to get right in my businesses, and this is something that I've, it's always been on my mind, but it's been really hammered home over the previous couple of weeks, because as you can see, I've got a couple of books on the desk here. This is one's just to show you for example's sake, and the other's to do a little book review on later. But I've been reading finished reading it, cracking book called Reed Hastings, which, funnily enough, is about Reed Hastings, who is the founder, chief exec of Netflix. And one of the things that has been paramount in the growth and success of Netflix is the culture that they've developed. the quality of staff that they've hired, and the way that they've been able to been able to nurture and get the best out of them. And there's been some, I guess, fantastically interesting and inspiring and mind-opening concepts in that book for me. Not necessarily applicable to everyone and to every business, and I'm sure some will probably scare the living daylights out of people. But there is definitely a whole exercise on culture and cultural change and implementation that I want to implement in our businesses over the I say over the coming months, but it's a months, it's a years, it's a lifetime project to get right, really. I also need someone to do that with me. HR probably is not my forte. Anyone who knows me will probably attest to. But it's something that it is something that I very, very much believe in. For being able to hire and keep the best staff, and take our businesses to where we want to go. So if you want a book, it's absolutely not just about HR. It's not just about culture. It's about it is about how Reed started the business. That some of the risks he's taken, some of the mistakes that he's made along the way, but how they have created a new industry from a new technology, and displaced the historical giants, the likes of Blockbuster Entertainment, and become a kind of a ubiquitous business in everybody's home and on everybody's smartphone. So that's definitely, oopsie daisy, that's definitely one that you should check out. What else? Well, we can't have a weekly roundup without talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not going to go too deep on this, because I know for some of you, it'll bore the living daylights out of you. And again, I only like to talk about things that I can talk about from a reasonable degree of knowledge and and I guess a good level of experience and expertise. And crypto and Bitcoin particularly are things which are still relatively new for me. Again, anyone who's been following me will know that I first started to buy my crypto, my Bitcoin and Ethereum, back in around the middle of February 2021, and I bought. I was buying in Bitcoin at about £27,000 was that was the kind of average price when I started buying, and Ethereum, I think from memory, was around £1,300, £1,100 at that time. And again, anyone who's paid anything more than a modicum of interest to crypto prices over the last 3, 4, 5 months has known that we've had a massive bull run, and thanks to a tweet from Elon, fallen off a cliff. Again, it's down to a bit more than obviously just a tweet from Elon, but I think the people. There's a few stories, there's a few messages from me here. First of all, to be very clear, I am educating myself in, let's say, in crypto, in decentralized currencies, in decentralized concepts as a whole. I'm buying with a long-term view that these currencies, these technologies are where the future's at, not with a view that tomorrow is necessarily the price is going to be better than it was today, or that I can make a trading profit out of these. I absolutely don't profess to know enough to trade. I would argue, does anyone really know enough to trade, and that traders are nothing more than gamblers. There's a time and a place to gamble, but for me, it isn't. It isn't with large portions of my personal portfolio. But what I do very, very strongly believe in is where the concept of decentralized, non-government intervened technologies and currencies are going. Do I think Bitcoin is going to be a currency of the future? I don't know. I mean, without question, there's going to be winners and losers in this space, and digital currency will be the future. Like I say, I'm not sure whether it will be Bitcoin itself, but I do very much believe in Bitcoin as a concept of a store of value and of a place to keep, a portion of my personal wealth, my portfolio. And again, I think I always want to try and tell you guys some stories that can try and hammer home some points. And again, for you guys who are fighting against the onset of crypto, who don't believe that's where we're going in the future, I want to tell you two things that have happened to me this week. One is I've probably spent nearly 15 hours in the last week or so talking to banks. These are banks that our businesses already deal with, about the most minor and mundane shit, really. Problems on a banking mandate. A bank account being locked because there's been a change of a company director. Basically the inability to access our own money that's in these accounts. To be able to make necessary payments in the day-to-day business. Like I said, the amount of time I have had to waste on that is absolutely frightening. Another thing, a personal matter. A couple of days ago, I was here in France. I was off to playing a poker game. I've got some UK cash sterling with me. I wanted to change £1,000 into whatever the euro equivalent was. Probably not much better than €1,000. And I walked for nearly 90 minutes around town to find, first of all, to try and find a bureau de change that was open. Then to find one that was, that actually had any money in it. Then to find one at a rate that was acceptable. It was the most mind-blowing concept, and I actually ended up not even changing the money in the end, because by the time I'd found someone who did have some money and would give me a rate which was disgusting, by the way, but by that point I'd just walked around so much, I was like, I'm done in, just give me what you got. This was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the lady said I'd have to come back in 2.5 hours time when they got the money together. I mean, it's a bureau de change, surely. And I'm in France. Their key currency has to be euros, and she wants 2.5 hours to rustle up £1,000 for me. It's just staggering and mind-blowing. But for me, all of these issues, all of these stories, go more. That they indicate that ultimately people are going to give in on these centralized systems, on these systems that are reliant on legacy rules, legacy processes, governments, regulatory bodies, etc. There's already enough people fighting about it. I mean, that's why we now have the challenger banks, and people talk about, challenger banks have been around for, 10, 15 plus years, your likes of your Aldermores, your Santanders, Shawbrooks. Now, one step further with your Monzos and your Starlings. These banks are there to challenge the status quo, of the big four, the incumbents that have given bad service with bad technology, etc., etc. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these banks have served a purpose in maybe giving easier accessibility to lending, or a better customer services hotline or something, but none of them are really revolutionary. As consumers, whether that's personal or business consumers, we still very much suffer the problem of being able to get someone to answer the phone in a timely manner, being able to get an appointment, being able to open an account. The painful dance with KYC, know your customer, your passport, your driving license, etc. Then getting the account open, and that's before we talk about lending. I mean, nothing I've been talking about here I've been talking about struggling to borrow money. Just accessing our own money, being able to transfer our own money. So like I say, whether or not this steers to a Bitcoin future, I don't know, but what it certainly does to me is steer towards a blockchain decentralized future, away from not necessarily regulation, but certainly away from intervention. And a word of what, so that's I guess the bigger crypto story. But I will admit to a crashing mistake and semi-embarrass myself to say that whilst I have been buying Bitcoin and Ethereum as a long-term hold, as a part of my portfolio, that I am expecting to never touch, to never sell. That, if I ever need fiat type currency, or if I ever need something, I can always borrow against that and lever against it. But I'm looking at this as a long-term put away that I'll never touch, that I'll be I guess inherited down the family line. I have been stupid enough to jump on the Dogecoin bandwagon, and I always talk about how you should only do what you understand, how you should obviously make sure you've got all the knowledge, all the education you need before you start risking your money. And you shouldn't be following fads. And what did I do? I threw all that out the window and bought myself 10 grand worth of Dogecoin about 5 weeks ago. I won't say it was completely without reason. I did it because even though I didn't understand the coin, or really know anything about the fundamentals of it, I felt there was such a lot of momentum behind it that I was going to jump in and out in a week, and I don't know, make 5, 10, 15, 50%, whatever it was going to be, effectively trade it, which is exactly what I've just told you I don't believe and shouldn't be doing. So I bought Dogecoin. I'm going to say I paid 44 cents, 44p, I can't remember which, and it has never been anywhere near 44p since the day I bought it. I think we're currently down around 22p, and I've done about 50% of my money in, and I deserve to have lost every penny. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm sat like a true gambler at the moment, thinking, well, as soon as it gets back to 44 pence, I'll just dump it. I don't know if you'll ever see 44 pence, because I don't know why it was ever 44 pence in the first place. But just so you don't think it's all boats and roses at my end, I do sometimes not heed my own advice and make stupid mistakes. So there you have it. What else can I tell you? I've invested in a new business over the last month or so. A business called Gym Squared. I've not got much to tell you about it just yet, but fingers crossed we should be open in Manchester. That's Manchester in England on the 21st of June. So I'll start to tell you a bit more about that nearer the time. But that is it is a state-of-the-art gym facility. I've got a very experienced partner on that business. We have, I am some money and some strategy. It's very much his project, very much his baby. But the concept really is to get away from the price chasing gym membership strategies of late. Anyone who goes to a gym now knows it's all about, well, this gym's at 50 quid a month, so this one's at 20 quid a month, this one's at 15, this one's at a tenner. And we've kind of taken that model and turned it on its head, and this isn't about giving the cheapest offering by any stretch. This is about giving the best offering. So I think our entry-level membership is about £95 a month, which to probably 99% of gym goers will sound absolutely astronomical, but we very much know the customer base that we're trying to target, and we want to provide a personal service to a small number of high spending customers, and there's going to be all kinds of fancy technology, fancy features in there that haven't been seen, well, in some cases anywhere before, but certainly in England before. We've got a fancy piece of tech called a bod pod, which I don't know anything like enough about it to tell you now, but I'm sure we'll get some podcasts going, some interviews and some videos of this kind of kit over the coming weeks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you like gyms, if you work out, if you're interested in that, please drop me a comment, drop me a DM, and I will. I'll get you. I'll get you a day pass. I'll get you a viewing. So yeah, and two more things really to wrap up. Every time I do this, I'm going to do a book review. I've started, I've changed my, I've changed my schedule around over the last 6 months and managed to bring reading back a lot more into my day to day. I used to, I've always been a strong advocate for books. Nothing I love more than getting stuck into a great business book or a great piece of non-fiction. But I somehow, it's a poor excuse, but I used to find I wasn't getting the time, so then I moved on to audio books, so I could maybe do them in the car, do them in bed. But I don't know if you guys suffer the same problem as me, but every time I put an audio book on in bed, I keep falling asleep. And that's never a reflection of the book being good or bad. I just get into bed, put the book on, nod off, wake up the next day, the book's still talking. I can't remember where I'd left off, and I keep having to go back to the beginning and never actually getting anywhere. So since I moved to Dubai, I've changed my daily schedule around and made sure that I definitely get lots more reading time in, and I'm doing physical books. So hopefully once a week I should at least have one book to talk to you about. So we mentioned the Reed Hastings book because of culture and recruitment. But this week I've just finished this tome called Fake. Now, what I'm going to do, I was thinking about this before we started recording. When I show you a book, I'm just going to show you and talk to you about what I've read that week. Just because I've read it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to say that it's great. On another section of my YouTube, another section on my website, we do book reviews where I think they're books that I really recommend you should read. But on this weekly roundup, I'm just going to talk about what I've read and good or bad. What do I think to this? I think how many pages? This is 464 pages. Now, I think anyone who's had any kind of interest in business or personal finance over the last 20-25 years knows who Robert Kiyosaki is. I mean, he's obviously very famous in the late 90s for writing the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I certainly read it as a kid. I've read some of his other books, over the last few years as well. I think what Robert's very good at is challenging opinions, is poking at the status quo. He's good at talking in high-level concepts. He's good at presenting high-level ideas. He gets a bit repetitive. I mean, this book is repetitive on another scale. 464 pages, I honestly could have been done in less than 64 pages. The amount of repetition in here is absurd, to the point that he shows diagrams. Sometimes he'll show them 10 times, 15 times. And again, I know, I guess part of Robert's teaching is repetition, is hammering things home, but this just got silly, to be honest. But what it talks about is three things: fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. Again, high level conceptually, fake money, we're talking about inflation, we're talking about centralized governments, we're talking about debt, wealth transference from the poor to the rich, the widening of the wealth divide, and he talks about those high level concepts very well, actually, but then he just goes on and on and on and on. Fake teachers, in today's Instagram world, we all know about fake teachers, fake gurus, but what he's really doing there is poking at the education system to talk about how we are not educated at school in the importance, well, not necessarily the importance, but the concepts of personal finance, of finance and business, and therefore why is it any wonder when people are 20 years, 30 years, 40, 50 years old that that they're shit with their money, that they don't understand the necessary personal finance concepts. He likes to talk about how this is probably the case because governments and the elites, as he calls them, want it that way. They want people to remain uneducated so that they can continue to prosper at the expense of the uneducated. I don't know about that. I'm not such a conspiracy theorist, but I think what we can't argue about is the fact that there is a frightening lack of financial education across the board. Not just with the poorer demographics. And this book does open your eyes to some interesting concepts. And then fake assets talks about what are real assets. Now again, anyone who knows Robert Kiyosaki, anyone who's read Rich Dad Poor Dad, knows he very much talks about assets being things that put money in your pocket instead of things that take money out of your pocket. And again, I guess an old cliche with that would be how most people would write down that their biggest asset is their house. And Robert always talks about the fact that that is probably actually your biggest liability, not your biggest asset. Because even though it may be of value, it costs money to upkeep. You have to pay the mortgage, you have to pay everything else. And the reality is that whatever it goes up over time is probably eroded by the cost of ownership. Like I say, it doesn't go particularly granular, but Robert is a massive advocate for gold. Claims to have been buying gold since the 70s, and that a vast portion of his personal wealth is in gold and silver. He gets a bit religious. I'm going to say religious in here. He talks about gold being God's money, and says a few what I would argue is bizarre stuff. Like I say, each to their own. I'm glad I read it. It's opened my eyes to a couple of concepts, and particularly gold. And the whole concept of gold fits in very much with my personal interest and personal thinking at the moment. To sit alongside crypto, to sit alongside Bitcoin that I'm building into my portfolio. So this week I have bought my first bit of gold. Bought a 1 kilogram gold bar. And I want to buy a lot more, but I guess like anything, I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about before I get too deep. But I also feel that until you've got some skin in the game, it's hard to be overly motivated. So I've taken the plunge, I've bought my bar, and now I'm going to be learning all about gold. So expect to hear more about that from me in these weekly roundups. And finally, before I go, I want to recommend someone to you every week, someone that I like to listen to, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on podcast, etc. And this week, I'm going to give a little shout out to a guy called POMP. That's POMP, Anthony Pompliano. Now, he's a guy I came across only probably a couple of months ago. Anthony has a fantastic podcast, which you can listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. He's also pretty active on Twitter. And he's a crypto guy. So if you're not interested in crypto, you're probably not going to be interested in POMP. But if you want to learn anything, he very much knows his shit, and he gets a lot of people on his show to talk about other crypto and decentralized related concepts, which are very, very educational, and I've learned a lot from listening and watching him. I've also been trying to get him on my podcast as well, so watch this space, because I'd love to have a good natter with him. But other than that is it for me for this week. When I started this, I thought I'm going to try and wrap these up in 10 or 15 minutes. I think we've been talking a bit longer than 10 or 15 minutes. I've got Callum nodding behind the camera. I think we've run out of SD card here. But listen, I guess I've had a few. We've had to set the scene. We've had a few weeks of things to talk about. Hopefully, future weeks will be quicker. But look. Like I say, if you want it long, you can have it long. If you want it short, you can have it short. You guys tell me what you want to hear, what you want to listen to, what I can help you with. If there's any specific things, DM me, email me through the week, and I will try and incorporate what I can into each weekly roundup. Like I say, we're going to film on a Sunday morning. We'll get it up by a Sunday night. And hopefully it will be a little bit more than yesterday's chip paper by Monday. So I hope you're going to like it. As always, thank you for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, give it a little like. If you're listening to the audio version of this on iTunes, please leave me a review. Please tell your friends. If you don't follow me on social, you can get me everywhere at the Matt Haycox. That's TheMattHaycox. I always respond to my messages. I always love to hear from you guys, and I want to make, like I said, I want to make content that you guys want to listen to. So please drop me a message, drop a comment below, and if you don't subscribe, make sure you do. and I look forward to seeing you in next week's weekly roundup. See you soon.